2, 1. We are live.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our Saturday Night Live. It's probably copyrighted, isn't it? Anyway, we're only on for an hour tonight, and we're on again Friday night. And our next class, which is PHP number 37, Jake?
Sounds that far, right?
Yeah. No, we did 36 last time.
The sign said 37.
37. 37 starts unofficially Sunday night. So tonight is Ask Me Anything, so go ahead and ask me anything, and I'll tell you as we go a little bit why we're here and what we do this for. And first thing I want to mention, I want to give offer our condolences and sympathy to Charlie Kirk and his family. A young man made quite a impact on the entire world. Tragedy. We include him in our prayers. I also have two good friends. One is Brent Rourke. If you have ever seen my video on doing shaker boxes, oval boxes. I did a video with Brent, 2010 maybe. Anyway, has a great business. It's called the Barn in Bloomfield, and made a lot of, actually his shaker boxes were sold around the world, and he did a lot of local woodwork, employed several people. And yesterday, was it yesterday, Frick?
I think the day before.
Day before yesterday, middle of the day, his business burnt to the ground. Nobody was hurt, but they lost everything. And I hadn't been in touch with him for probably a year, and I just found out the other day that 3 or 4 months ago, his wife suddenly died. Unexpectedly, I think it was a heart attack. So we'll talk about double tragedy. We're gonna go visit him tomorrow and see if we can't help. And a big shout out to my friend Kirk over in Halifax, Nova Scotia, who does a lot of work for us and recently found out he has serious cancer, and he was over there being operated on, but I heard the operation went well, so. Wow. Anyway, go ahead, Frick. What's our first question?
All right, our first question
Make
comes
it a cheery one.
What's that?
Make it a cheery one. Cheery as in smile a lot?
It's an easy one, we'll put it that way.
Okay.
This one's from Chris B. in Granby, Connecticut.
Hi, Chris.
It says, hi, Rob, what is your favorite glue for laminations?
Well, I'll tell you what isn't my favorite. I used to use it a lot. It was a 2-part plastic resin. It's just a pain to work with. We're doing a big veneer project right now. In fact, that's what this is. Turn the camera around, Jake. We're using.
You can't get to it.
Huh?
You can't get to it.
Can't get to what?
What are you showing?
No, I'll show them the veneer. I'll just grab this piece. I've got $1,000 worth of Macassar ebony veneer. Oh my goodness, this stuff is so fragile. You just have to treat it like it's rice paper. So, back to the question. If a small, manageable size, I use Type Bond 3. I use Type Bond 3 for everything. But these panels, the first one we did was about 6 feet by 3 feet. No, it couldn't be 3 feet, 30 inches. And had some terrible problems with the veneer splitting. Oh my. So I've got some stuff, thanks to Mark Spagnola, told me about a product that softens the veneer so that it'll lay flat. You put it under pressure, and then when it dries, it comes out flat as a pancake. So I'm looking forward to that. We should have that sometime this week. So we use a slow set Type Bond 2. Type Bond 2 Extend, it's called, for making our shooting boards and a lot of the stuff that we do. So I'm probably going to try that. I like the idea of it. The 2-part is just such a pain to work with. So, not a very definitive answer, but a couple of suggestions for you. Next, Frick.
All right, next one was sent in
Is
through...
Luther helping tonight, or is he on the road?
He's
He's in Detroit. Detroit.
Next one comes from Josh Warren through Instagram. It says,
Hi, Josh.
What is your best advice for developing design skills?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So my background is I studied under Milo Bothman at BYU, who was an adjunct professor of design. And Milo was probably the most prominent furniture designer in the United States back in the 1980s, 70s and 80s, 90s. And then he moved his business to Salt Lake City and he taught part-time at BYU. And I worked, in addition to being his student, I also was hired by him to do a lot of his prototype work. Wow. Read the question again so I can formulate my answer specific to the question, please.
The question was, what is your best advice for developing design skills?
Oh, this is a hard one because I keep wanting to think that you either have it or you don't, but that doesn't mean you can't be taught some principles. So I can't even remember any books to recommend, but I'm sure there's some good books out there on just basics like the golden rectangle, those proportions. I don't pay attention to it, but interesting enough that when I build a box, and when I build a box, unless it's for something specific, I just kind of hold on to it and think, well, if it's this long, then it should be about this wide and about that tall. And it's amazing how if you were to go back and measure it, it's very close to that golden rectangle. So a couple of small things like that. Length as it relates to height and depth and whatever. There's probably a framework of things to watch for. But how do you actually learn design? My backup has always been ask your wife, because they always have a better eye for that stuff than we do for some reason. As I travel around and teach and visit amateur woodworkers, you see a lot of stuff that it's really clunky. So I would avoid that. And that means when you're building a box, don't have the lid too thick. You don't want it too thin, but if it's too thick, it instantly crosses the line and it just becomes, oh wow, just so out of proportion. So I would say watch your proportions, particularly when it comes to the thickness of things. That's probably the biggest criticism I would have of the small boxes that I see people make, is that they make them way too thick, or the lid's way too thick, or the sides are way too thick, and I'm guilty of that myself, and I'm just giving you my opinion. If it's a piece of furniture that you're going to actually sit on or lie on, then it needs to be comfortable, so you really need to base everything you do around that, around the comfort. Pretty coolest chair in the world, but if it's uncomfortable to sit in, who wants it? And something my wife always screams at me about is that when I make drawers, they're never deep enough. But I don't like the look of deep drawers. I like them to be nicely proportioned, but that usually does not pan out well for convenience when it comes to storing things. So you probably ought to throw into the mix what's needed. And then once you have the framework of what's needed, then you can start to refine it, but you just kind of have to go for it. I can't be very helpful because I can't really put this into words. What do you do to sharpen your design skills or develop your design skills? I suppose read, but I don't like reading. I don't like looking at a lot of other different styles of furniture because I find it influences me too much, but maybe that's where your inspiration eventually comes from. I've always liked shaker furniture because of the simplicity. I'll end with this. They just included what was needed. There was nothing superfluous. They let the wood and the joinery, in other words, the method of construction and the materials, that was the feature. So nothing was, no scroll work, no, not that that's wrong, but it's not my taste. So keep it simple, make sure it's comfortable, and try to keep the proportions pleasing. That's as best I can do for you for a start. Next, Frick.
All right.
That was a hard one, but a good one. Made me think.
All right, next one, also from Instagram, from Danny Delot.
Hey, Danny.
He says, is torrefied maple a good choice for a cutting board? I want a single piece board, but flat sawn boards are prone to cupping, and quarter sawn rift sawn boards aren't wide enough without doing a glue up. Thanks.
Yeah, Yeah, I would think it would be. You want a wood that's tight like that, like maple, and the torrefied doesn't absorb water, so it doesn't move. At least it's not supposed to. So I would say that'd be a great choice. Just be aware that it is really weak, or the torrefication process really weakens the wood. As long as the piece you're making is sufficiently big where it's not a problem, but I wouldn't get into any small pieces. Like there's a piece of Macassar ebony that's 3/4 by 1/4, and if that was torrefied, you could easily snap that. A fraction of the effort that would take to break that piece. And by the way, in case we don't wonder what we're looking at here, so we're building this desk underneath all this junk, and we're doing these drawer boxes, the case to hold them, and the inside is Baltic birch, and then it'll be veneered with the Macassar. And the leading edge is going to have solid band of Macassar on it. I hate cutting into this stuff because even the sawdust is expensive. Anyway, we were just filming just before we started this, so that's why that's there. Next, Rick.
Peter Rosa in the chat says,
Hi, Peter.
can you ask Rob for the dimensions on the plane till?
Dimensions on the plane till? Yeah. So, see if I can even tell you the angle that it's laying back. Might be able to figure that out. First of all, I'll give you the opening. It is 24 wide, 22 high. Well, actually, the entire opening is 22 3/4 tall. So that's just enough room for the number 8 to get in there. And then this opening is 3 1/8. That's to accommodate a number 8 plane. The next one is 3" to accommodate a number 7. And then the next one would be 3", and the next one would be 3". That's a number 6 and number 5.5. And then I've got a 10 1/4 in here, and that sits in a spot that's 2 1/4 wide. This is another 3" because it's got a number 4.5. And this one over here with the scrub plane is 2". And then these little top ones in here. The angle that lays back, how am I gonna do that? Uh, 10, 20. Well, that's not a very accurate way of doing it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Let me give you this dimension. So that opening is 20, what did I say, 24? No. This opening is 22 3/4. So it starts at 1/4 of an inch in from here, and up here it goes in 11 inches. So that triangle, the 20, this right angle triangle is going to have, that one side of the triangle is going to be 22 3/4. The right angle one's going to be, what did I say? Can't keep a thought. I'll say 11 inches, and then join them up, and that'll give you your angle. And then, if you haven't seen it, what I did to utilize that space is I made little pockets in there to keep various plane-related things, mostly blades. Next, Rick. By the way, we're here because this is how we, one of our fundraisers for the Purple Heart Project, which is a charity that we started 10 years ago. And our goal is to bring peace through hand tool woodworking to combat wounded veterans. We've been going for 10 years. We've had approximately 200 soldiers go through our program from 5 different countries: Ireland, Denmark, Australia, Canada, United States, mostly from the US. We have had 36 classes, soon to be 37. And first week of October, or whatever the date is going to be our first ever intermediate class for qualifying vets who have been to the Purple Heart Project and have gone home and done a lot of work with it. They had the opportunity, thanks to a friend named John down in Florida, who's graciously picked up the tab so we can fly these guys in, treat them to a week-long class learning how to build drawers. And then our last class of the year will be middle of October, and then we'll start all again in 2026. And thanks to your support. So what we ask you to do, if you feel so patriotic and you want to help, the most beneficial thing to us is if you become a reoccurring donor. That's a monthly donor. That makes it easier for us to plan. Last year, the cost of running the program was $350,000 US. So we fly the soldiers in, we house them, we feed them. The class is 6 days long, from 7:30 in the morning till about 9:30 at night. We give them, in US dollars, they get about $4,000 worth of premium tools to take home. Plus we have a workbench that gets built by the bench brigade and delivered to their home for them, so they can continue to do this. So, big undertaking, involves a lot of people. My right-hand man in this is retired Colonel Luther Sheely, and you've got Ken Anthony, who's what's his title? President, yeah, of Purple Heart Project Canada. Luther's the president of Purple Heart Project United States. We have several Canadian vets that sit on the board that do various things. What am I forgetting? Oh, we have the Bench Brigade. Jack Lane down in Texas heads that up. There's 300 plus members. These are volunteers all over the world that say, hey, I'll build a bench. So when the time comes, there was just a delivery of 2 benches just a couple of days ago out in British Columbia, Canada. When the time comes, if the vet is close enough to you, or if you're the closest one to the vet needing a bench, you'll get the call and you'll get to build that bench. That's an awesome experience. So, please help us. Next, Frick. By the way, we are a registered charity in both the United States and Canada, and we also recently received a Platinum Award, I think, meaning we're the most transparent. We're in the mid 90-some-odd% of everything we collect goes directly to the program. The only expenses that are covered that aren't directly involved would be the accounting. Next, Frick, please, sir.
The next one comes from Ralph Andrews in the chat.
Hi, Rob.
He says, hello, curious what your temperature/humidity in your shop and classroom are, usually.
What do we keep it at, Jake? What's that say?
Well, I don't know.
In Fahrenheit, 68. 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and we keep the humidity. Well, it's they're heat pumps, so they act as dehumidifiers. So I would guess, I can't even guess. I don't know what the relative humidity is, but it is dry. It's drier than outside. It's very comfortable.
Next one from
Year
Bart
round.
Anderson.
Who?
Bart Anderson.
Bart? Hi,
Yep.
Bart.
Do you build product to sell, or do you only build custom orders aside from your tool line?
No, and no. No, I don't do custom woodwork anymore. No, not interested in that. I seem to do a lot of urns. I do want to get back into building boxes and things like that I sell through galleries. I always thought that was fun. But actually doing woodwork for the public, I'm not really interested in that anymore. Been down that road. It's a bumpy one. But we're always building stuff, always. And it ends up accumulating around me, making it hard to walk around here. Next, Frick.
Next one's from Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Say this right. Girardin? Girardin?
Where's he from?
The chat.
Oh, I thought you were telling me that's where he's from.
He says, what proportions do you suggest for a saw bench? Length, width, and height?
Well, I'll give you the dimensions of mine. Jake, you want to adjust the camera? So you want it high enough so that you're not hitting the floor with your saw. So this one is 44 inches long. It's one piece of pine, so the width was probably determined because of how wide that pine was. It's 11 inches wide. The top is 1.25 inches thick, and the top sits off of is 18.5 inches tall, which seems to be a good height for using your knee to hold your board in place. It's plenty stable. I've never had an issue that way. It's long enough. Any longer, it gets awkward to move. So I would say that works. Next, Rick.
This one doesn't have a username. It just says X.
X?
Oh no, Siovish
Okay.
from California.
Siovic.
He says, when you make a chest of drawers, do you
Howdy.
put finish on all surfaces? In particular, the inside surfaces of the drawer, the outside surfaces, the inside surfaces of the chest.
Not always. Yeah, you don't, whatever you do, you don't want the smell of the finish, especially if you're doing a chest of drawers that's going to hold clothing. You don't want the smell of the finish to interfere with the clothing. I wouldn't you put any kind of a top coat, lacquer, urethane, anything like that on the outside of the drawer, because your fit is coming right off of the hand plane. So the only thing I ever do with the outside of the drawers is wax. And it is nice to keep the drawers clean, depending on where they're being used. So I mean, you could use wax on the inside. Usually I don't. I don't finish the inside. I just leave them natural. Smell the wood. Usually, almost always use some kind of a cedar on the bottom. So I don't want the smell of the finish to mask or interfere with the smell of the cedar. Outside, yes. And I'm vain, so I almost always put a little bit of finish right there, just so that the joint stands out.
They didn't see that.
I can pull it out. I'll just finish a little bit of it just so that you can see contrasting pins. Next, Rick. We're cruising through these.
Here we are.
You running out?
No, got lots.
Okay, keep going.
From Ken Winningham in the chat.
Hi, Ken.
This is what led to your pursuit of woodworking as a career. What would you say? I guess it's a three-parter. So,
Give it to one at a time because I have a short memory.
okay. So, what led to your pursuit of woodworking as a career?
Father was a wood shop teacher, turned carpenter contractor, so I grew up in a house that had a basement full of tools and wood. Had an affinity for it from as far back as I can remember, so I was always building stuff, taking stuff apart, sometimes getting it back together. So I had that kind of a thing about me, and really enjoyed woodwork. Loved wood. I don't really know why. Built furniture. I built a bed for a girlfriend. Built a hope chest or two in my teenage years. Made walnut pistols for a pellet pistol I had when I was 9 or 10. And just was always building stuff. Of course, built the other stuff like forts and rafts and boats. Anyway, went off to BYU to study physiotherapy. Never thought you could make a living building furniture. Should have stayed with that thought. Didn't last in that very long. I just realized this wasn't for me. Aimlessly wandering through campus one day and was in what was called the Wilkinson Center. And they had a shop, a wood shop, where students could pay an hourly rate to go in and work. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And then I found they had a woodworking program. They actually had a teacher education program. So back then there was a demand for woodshop teachers. And then I found out, somehow I got introduced to Dale Nish, who was the program director, or at least the woodshop director. and he was a Canadian. So when two Canadians meet outside the country, doesn't matter anything else about politics at home, it's like two military guys meeting. They have an instant bond. Anyway, so Dale somehow ended up in an advanced furniture class and did well. And Dale came to me afterwards and offered me a scholarship and a job as his assistant if I wanted to come back, which I sat on for a year and eventually went back. Finished my time at BYU, during that to which I got to go to Anderson Ranch Arts Center and work with some of the best woodworkers in the world as their assistant. And then I worked under Milo Boffman. Came back to New Brunswick in 1989, started my furniture business, and 11 years later, we were starving to death. And that's when Tom Lee Nielsen had contacted me, wanting me to sell his tools in Canada. And one thing led to another. So that was my story. The turnaround was in 1999 when I came to realize the only people who could appreciate what I was doing didn't want to buy it, they wanted to learn how to do it. And that's when I realized that if I wanted to stay in this field, I was going to have to teach other people how to do it, hobbyists, because there was no way you could. We had, I don't know how many children we had at the time, but we ended up having 10 total. So I probably had 5 or 6 at the time, and realized that there weren't enough hours in the week to earn enough money building furniture. So it couldn't happen. And you probably can if you are willing to hire people and get into kitchens and things like that. But as far as the average person walking outside, would they pay $3,000, $4,000 for a nice coffee table? No, wouldn't happen. So that's where I am today. Next, Frick.
Still his question.
Oh, yes.
Still his second part of his question. What would you say was your biggest epiphany in your career?
Coming to realize that the only people who could appreciate what I was doing, dovetails, hand planes, blah, 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 didn't want to buy it, they wanted to learn how to do it. And that's when I said, okay, then I will become the best teacher of woodworking. And I'm still working on that. Next part of that question?
The final part was, and finally, have you built the bookshelf for all the books I sent?
Oh, that's who he is. Actually I do. We've got, I had a bookshelf already built, and I put it on a cart, and that's where all the books are, but we'll have to give it a more permanent home. And thank you very much. That was very kind of you. So we will have lots of reference books for students. In fact, I think, this class starting next week will be the first class, because the last class we taught was in July. Or relatively early in July. The staff always wanted August off. Can I take this other clamps, Jake?
Oh, yeah.
The staff want August off, and we had 2 turning classes the first part of September that both got canceled. So we had a 10-week break. It almost feels like starting over. Next, Frick. And my voice is starting to come back, which certainly isn't any too soon. Is that all of his?
Yeah.
Right.
Next one is from Shaka Vibes in the chat. What is the current project in the online classes?
This one right here. I'll get it out and show you. So this is, it's kind of been put on the back burner because we were doing other stuff. So this is an ash desk. The drawer boxes and all this section underneath is going to be Macassar ebony. Fiddleback ash on the rest of it. So we just banded. This is the first time that I have built anything out of Macassar ebony. I've built boxes, but never a piece of furniture. So it will be interesting. The 4-quarter Macassar ebony, which is sitting right here, I think was $125 a board foot. There's $500 worth of lumber there. So we just banded this, and then the next step will be to flush that up. Really curious to see how it glues. I don't expect any problems. Next, Frick.
John Spicer in the chat.
Hi, John.
Is there an update on the RC hand plane?
The one I just moved? Well, that's another shout out. So Chris Davenport, those of you who've been around a while, Chris often would come down. Chris Davenport got terribly sick second week of June. Spent almost 2 weeks in ICU. And then he ended up in rehab at the same rehab facility that my son Bo was at. And he just got back to work last week. So it's been almost 3 months. And he's our main guy. So unfortunately for Chris and for us, things are a little bit behind schedule, but we're still pushing. Can't tell you any more than that at this stage, but Chris has had a job that he had to get finished last week, and he's back on our stuff this coming week. So, and we've been praying for him for lots of reasons, but for him, he had. They told him that he had, what was it called, Jake?
Like deer.
No, not deer.
Hair.
Snowshoe hair virus. I said to him, I said, Chris, sounds like they made that up on the way to your room. So, if a mosquito bites a snowshoe hare, or a squirrel, and then bites you, you may get snowshoe hare virus, which manifests very similar to what do they think he had at first? Meningitis. He was down and out. He was in a bad way. We were worried. But he's I don't know if he's 100%, but he's in the high 90s. Next, Rick. My list of people. What? Oh, if you're a combat wounded vet that has been to our program, one of our alumni, you're watching tonight, please say something in the chat. Where is Ken around?
Yeah, Ken's on.
Ken watching it? Or you?
Okay.
So.
Well, I'll have to do it because Ken's not here.
Yeah. So, in the chat, what do they say in the chat? So they find you, or you find them.
At me?
At me? At Jake?
Yeah.
So you put at Jake in the chat, and then tell us your name and what class you were in, so we can remember you and give you a shout out. How's that? Next, Frick.
Next one's from Robert Baker.
Hey, Robert.
Do different hand planes require the bevel to be up or down?
No. No. Well, if it's a block plane, a low-angle block plane, the bevel has to be up because the blade sits too low for it to be down. You'd have such a acute angle that there'd be no metal left on the edge of the blade. But all your bench planes are beveled down. And then there's a few other planes that have a bevel up. I don't care for them. Low-angle jack, low-angle smoother. They were patterned after the Stanley number 62 and the number 164. But did they perform any better? No, I don't think so. If you have your blade properly sharpened, it'll cut, and it'll cut well. Not a fan. Next, Rick.
Next one's from Johnny's Chop Shop.
Johnny's Chop Shop.
What would you recommend? What would you recommend for a beginner wood turner?
What wood?
Yep.
What would a beginning turner?
You recommend for a beginning wood turner?
Well, so I had Kip Christensen, who's a world-renowned wood turner. I've had him up here a couple times. He was actually the one who's going to teach classes. We'll offer to get it next year. Timing was bad with the situation with Bo. He likes to start students off with maple. Mine is pine, northern white pine. Beautiful wood, easy to cut. Gives you, and if you catch the tool in it, it's not going to be nearly as scary as if you catch it in a piece of maple. So if you ask me, I would say pine or poplar, and if you ask Kip, he would say nice, clear, hard maple. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Sean Marshke.
Hey, Sean.
Hey Rob, does quarter sawn red oak have reflective rays in it, or is it just quarter sawn white oak?
Well, I rarely use red oak, so they're called medullary rays. And I think you find it in red oak as well, although certainly not as pronounced as white oak. I'm going to actually say no. If you actually say, okay, what does a medullary ray look like? And if you use white oak as an example, you're not going to find anything like that in red oak, so I'm going to say no. Also find it in Australian lacewood. I'm not a fan of red oak. Wow. When they use it in McDonald's for their furniture, that's about 20 years after you should have stopped using it in your house. So all the kitchens and flooring that was done in the 70s and 80s, maybe more the 80s, was red oak. But I think it's kind of fallen off. Walnut seems to be back in favor, extremely expensive. And cherry seems to be dropping off. Its price is very moderate compared to where it was 20 years ago. Now that might be a regional thing too. Next, Frick.
Next one's from Sergey Ermakov.
Hey, Sergey.
It says, hi Rob, I know you don't like red oak as a wood. Recently I had to do mortise and tedding with it. It was brittle, lots of broken fibers. Is it a technique or something else?
Well, one of the things that I don't like about red oak is the difference between the density of the early wood, known as spring wood, and the late wood, known as summer wood, is so extreme that you can blow through it. So I'll explain. In the spring, when there's lots of moisture, the wood grows fast. And the pores are really open. You can literally blow through them. And then in the summer, when it's not as much moisture, the wood grows much slower and it's very hard. So what I remember seeing when I was teaching the lab at BYU, where it was an open lab, people could come in and build stuff. And the new guys would always build it out of red oak, and they'd sand the life out of it. And you could run your hand over the table, and it would just go like this, because the sandpaper would eat away the spring wood rapidly, but not the summer wood. So it just, So it tends to fracture, especially in thin pieces. I mean, that spring wood doesn't have, the spring wood doesn't have much strength at all. So it's probably more the wood than it is your technique. Don't like the wood. I just find it so coarse and so blah in your face. But you oak lovers are going to hate me now. That's all right. We can all have a different opinion and get along. Frick and I, we don't always agree, do we, Frick?
No.
I say you should get here on time. And you
I was
say,
on time today.
Oh, yes, you were. Yes. It drives Luther crazy. We start on the hour, and Frick shows up at about 3 minutes to.
And I'm usually ready.
Yeah.
Next one's from Robert Hill in the chat.
Hey, Robert.
He says, I love your dovetail saw, Sean Chim, and IBC blades. Do you have any new innovative products in the works?
Oh, yeah. So, shameless promotion, thank you. So this is my dovetail square. And now that I use it, I say I don't know how I got along without it. And I'll show you why. It's so simple. I'm a big proponent of always making sure the piece of wood that you're working on, dovetails in particular, but mortise and tenon as well, is standing plumb in the vise. Let me explain. That handle fits in your hand the same way every time you grab it, every time. So if it fits in your hand the same way every time, you know based on the grip where the blade is. So I can close my eyes and I can tell you I'm at 10 degrees to the left, 10 degrees to the right, I'm standing plumb. So you take advantage of that because it doesn't take very long before you can make a plumb cut just by feel. Well, that works unless your board is 3-4 degrees off to the right or left, then it doesn't work. So the easiest variable to control is to control the board standing plumb. So here's what you do. You take this, you do it like that, you set it there, and you lock it. Now it's standing plumb. What else can you do with it? When it comes to cutting your dovetail, especially when you're new, you want to get, I don't want any guides, but I don't mind helping set it. So there's a 10-degree slope right there, so then that just kind of registers in my wrist, and I can come over here and make that cut. And then there's a 10-degree slope to the other side over here, and I just register that in my wrist, and I can make that cut. Now the other nice thing too is you set it, you put your plane on its edge like this, and you loosen these two screws, and you set it so that that is at the top of your plane, and this is at the bottom. So now when you're setting up to transfer tails to pins, you would take the pin board, grip it like that, set it in there. Now when you set this on, that's at the exact same height. That's at the exact same height as your plane. You create your little bridge and transfer your pieces. It's called the dovetail square. And I use it every time, and I said, can't believe I worked without it. What other new products do we have? Oh, yeah, this was Jake's idea. So we're coming out with our own push sticks, a 1/4-inch one and a 3/4-inch one made out of Baltic birch. This was Dale Nish's design. It's very smart. I just cringe when I see people that use those long stick with a V notch on the end of it and try to control a board. This sets on there, and you can keep pressure through your entire board. Instead of sacrificing that, if you got a thin piece, you just grab your 1/4-inch one, and this little caddy, which still needs a little bit of work, sits on your Biesmeyer fence so that they're right there. That is to promote safety. I'm like everybody else. If I need it and it's not right there, then I end up trying to have my fingers too close to the blade. But if it's sitting right there, I have no excuse. What else we got coming, Jake? We've got dovetail practice wood for half blinds, poplar and walnut, that's all packaged up, ready to go.
Oh,
Our new plane.
8-inch messy tracer.
Oh, yeah. So we brought in, I'll tell you the story on this. We brought in, I discovered these clamps in the 90s, made by Bessie. And that size is my most used in here. Love it, just fantastic. Didn't realize you can't buy these in North America. They only sell the lesser version, which is a junk. And I hounded them for years, literally years. And they relented finally. When was it, December? I think it was last December.
Yeah.
They said, fine, we'll sell them to you. So we ordered 500 of them, and they didn't last very long. Phew, they were gone. And we were down to 200. We ordered another 1,000 of these and 300 of these, which is the 10-inch version. And unfortunately, they're not going to get here until the 1st of December. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But those are, they're so handy. Now that I'm talking to you, I might as well at least explain. So here's what we end up having to buy. That's their blah version, and this is the tradesman. So the most noticeable thing is that little cap right there that spreads the pressure. On the tradesman, it's a solid piece of aluminum, so it's nice and flat, spreads the pressure. On the cheap one, it's a piece of hollowed out steel, so it leaves a ring. The threads are lousy. There's only 2 grip surfaces on this for when you're trying to get this thing to grab. On the tradesman, there's 6. 3 on each, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it grabs when you need it to grab. And you need it to grab when the glue's drying, and you're trying to do that with one hand. Garbage. Only reason I keep this around is so I can show people. And what else are we working on? We're always working on lots of different products. You ask me and I can't bring them to mind. Next, Fred.
Mark B wants to know,
Mark.
have you raffled off the tool cabinet from last year?
I wish I could say yes. So I'll explain that one quickly. We made can we go out there and show them? Can you just dismount the camera and just walk out there for a second so I don't have to bring it in?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me make sure the place isn't a mess. It happens in between classes. I'll show them a little. Did I show them the little bow boxes we made?
I think you did.
All right, come quick look at this.
Don't go far.
So, oh wait a minute, hold on a second. I got too much stuff out there. I can't show that. It's like an armory out there. We did a nice, really nice walnut tool cabinet. With the intent was we'd build it and then we'd sell it so that we could raise money for the Purple Heart Project. How we could raffle it off. Well, we are a 501c3, which means that we can issue tax receipts. It also means that those who scrutinize for tax purposes scrutinize 501c3s even more. So you can't do anything that isn't above board. And you cannot legally hold an online raffle. And everybody said, well, could you do this, could you do that? No, we can't. So we are looking at doing a sweepstakes. Are we still looking at that?
Yeah.
There's a possibility that we can do a sweepstakes, which is how McDonald's and the other places get around it, because sweepstakes, you don't have to, actually I don't even know enough to explain it, but we're working on it, but we still have it. So if anybody's got 50 grand that they want to donate to the Purple Heart Project and tool cabinet in exchange, talk to me. But I thought, it'd be great. Everybody raffled off $50 a ticket, and somebody that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it would win it. I thought that would be fantastic, but that's obviously can't happen. Next, Fred.
Next one's from...
Oh, here, I just want to show you this. I think I told you this, but in case I didn't. So Jake and I and Kyle from Newfoundland, wounded vet, and Tony from Australia, another wounded vet. My son Bo died at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and we started to work on this. We had to have a casket ready. You don't plan for this stuff. So, and my brother-in-law Dwayne and my brother-in-law Dwight. Anybody else, Jake? Think anybody else helped us? Anyway, we started working on it about 4 in the afternoon on Saturday. We worked through the night. We finished at 8 o'clock the next morning. So we saved all of the offcuts from the lumber that we used, the pine boards. And I used it to make, we call it a bow box. So this is what the casket looked like. It's all dovetailed, and then we laser engraved. We had 2 hockey sticks fastened to the top with a saying up here. I'll read it to you. Oh, never mind, I don't want to do that. We have stuff that we, okay. So each one of his 9 siblings would get one of these. And the little Jake and Kyle, mostly Kyle, designed these are made out of hockey stick shafts. And that was so that we had 50 or 60 pallbearers. He's got a lot of friends. They all wanted to be able to participate. So 6 of them, 1, 2, 3, 8 of them would carry it from this side of the field to that side of the field. Now his brother Mitch and his cousin Parker, they stayed with it the whole time. So the 8 of them would go this way, and then they'd pick up 6 new ones, and they would carry it over to this side. They'd pick up 6 new ones, they'd carry it that way. I think they went 10 times back and forth. It was quite a scene. Anyway, so that's, I don't know how that came up, but thank you for all your messages of support. We appreciate it. Next, Fred.
Next one is from Bill Wood.
Hi, Bill.
He says, what is the purpose of the brass plug in some of your saw handles?
Oh, so I used to, I first started making saws in 2008. And when did we start with the CNC, Jake?
2020.
2020?
Yeah.
So 2020, we had, that's when Chris came into our life. we ended up getting a $250,000 CNC machine. Up to that point, I made every stinking handle. It was a dangerous procedure. Now, Dave, who used to work for me, would do all the sanding. Then Ian took over. But when we started doing it on the CNC, we had to have 3 points of contact to hold it in place. So a hole there, where these two screws are, and then we needed one back here to hold it. So the only option to do was to fill it, and you may as well fill it with brass. So that's why that's like that. And if you don't have one of these saws, you should read some of the testimonials. That saw will have you in one weekend cutting dovetails that you would not have thought possible. And I get that feedback from folks all the time. Saw was designed to teach anybody that still has the dexterity of being able to tie their shoes and the interest will be able to cut a dovetail by hand. Next, on my wall behind me, you've got great examples. Various combat wounded vets, some with half their limbs or more gone. Anybody to say hello to, Jake?
Yeah.
Let's have it. Pause for it. Drum roll.
Jonathan.
Oh, you know what I should say? Just so we've had 3 vets that were selected to come to our drawer making workshop, thanks to John. That for one was Jerry, who had a health issue, and then 2 others were unable to come because of work. 2 others, Jake? Jake, talk to me.
We've only had 2 drop out.
Oh, 2 drop out.
Yeah.
1 was an iffy, but we got that solved. So we brought up the next 2 that qualified, and Tony from Australia, and Ralph. Well, it's not Ralph. No, not up there. Ralph is Ralph is a member of the Purple Heart
I think he
board.
volunteers. I don't think he's a member of the board, is he?
Isn't he? Yeah. Oh, no, Brent is on the board. He volunteers. I think he's on corporate fundraising. Anyway, he was just here to be my assistant in July. Ralph was here in July, wasn't he? He's come back, and Tony was here in June, and he's coming back.
Oh, don't forget Angie's on it.
Who?
Angie.
Oh yes, Angie. Angie's always Angie, who is Ken's cousin, is always having to pick up the slack when Ken takes too much time off, Jake takes too much time off. Good thing she's there. Thanks, Angie. Now, who do you have?
Jonathan.
Jonathan Sidney? Sid?
Michael Delvoy.
Michael's always there.
Kevin Burris.
Kevin Burris, buddy, haven't seen you in a while. Need to give me a call.
James Burrows.
James Burrows. Why do we call him?
I assume that's his middle name.
Huh?
I assume that's his middle name.
Well, Andrew works here. So Sid works here, Andrew works here, and Al works here.
And we
Three
use those
wounded
terms
vets.
loosely.
And Jake says we use the term work loosely.
Michael Miller.
Michael?
Jay Levy.
Jay's just recent. Jay was, didn't I just see Jay in a picture? Was he at a PHP
I don't know.
fundraiser?
Yeah, he could have been. I didn't see the picture, but he could have been there. He's with Omar right now.
Yeah, they were what?
And they're on.
Yeah, they were that was.
No, they were on like watching it together.
Oh, well they must that was. So Omar doesn't mention Omar. This is Omar right here. Omar Milan, combat wounded, Marine EOD, severely blown up. Wow, what a mess it did to his arms and his hands and his legs. And he pulled that dovetail off, and I was just so impressed. I couldn't believe it. So they are somewhere at a woodworking event manning the booth for the Purple Heart Project. Thank you, boys.
That's it.
That's it? No Jeff?
Yeah.
Who else normally is on? Abby? Yeah. All right. Keep going, Frick. We got 5 more minutes.
This one's from Jeff Schnabb.
Hey, Jeff.
For the veneer / edge band, do you edge band first then is it veneer?
Veneer.
Well, you didn't spell it right.
Oh. Say it again?
I don't think. For the veneer / edge band, do you edge band first, then veneer over that, or veneer first, then edge band?
Yeah. Edge band first. Edge band first because it's easier, you think about it, it's easier to hide the veneer glue line than it is to hide the band glue line. So let me restate that. If I put this edge band, if I glue this on here like that, because I want solid wood to show, and then I put the veneer, oh, look at this, I got everything I need right here. Then I put the veneer on the top, all you see is a little wee thin line right there, a little wee thin line. But if I did it the other way around, and I glued the veneer on, and then I put the edge band on, well, you've got a much bigger piece there. It's far more noticeable. So that's the reason I do it. However, there may be circumstances where you don't do it like that. But I typically edge band first and then sandwich it between the two pieces of veneer. Next, Rick.
This is from Sigvi Sletness Madsen.
Thank you. I mean, hi.
Yeah, hopefully I said that right. Hi, Rob. What do you think about sapelli for furniture? Do you have a specific...
Well, I call it sapelli, but
Okay.
everybody has different names.
That's how I'm reading
Yeah,
it.
well...
And do you have a specific use for it?
Yeah, this is there. That's sapelli right there. So it looks very much like mahogany. Most people would actually think it's mahogany. That's one of those woods. Mahogany was very popular in the 50s and 60s, and then that faded away, and oak took over, and then that faded away, and the light blonde maples, birches took over, and they seem to be given away to the darker woods again. So everything cycles. I like, oh, my bench too has various woods that look like mahogany. So I like it. I like sapelli. I have no problem at all working with it, but I don't have a lot of it. Next, Rick.
All right, we'll end with a MASH trivia question. This one comes from username They Call Me MacGyver.
They call me MacGyver.
He says, Gary Berghoff,
Yeah.
radar, often concealed his left hand due to what?
He had a deformed hand.
Gary did.
Yeah, he had a deformity. It was a small hand, and usually they would try to hide it with a clipboard or something. But a couple times I saw it. I think in the beginning when he was worried about getting the part, because you wouldn't be in the military, right? If you had a deformity like that, it would affect your ability maybe to shoot a rifle. But later on in the show, I don't think they were quite so worried about it. But yeah, give me one more. Give me a tough one.
I didn't have one ready, sorry.
No? It's not 9 o'clock yet, our time.
Yes, it is.
Oh, is
The
it?
secondary, this is from Carlos Eduardo Schuster.
Hey, Carlos.
The secondary and tertiary bevel that you usually use in your sharpening method has the function of making the blade sharper, or is it only used to sharpen the blade more quickly?
Well, the goal is always to get it as sharp as we can get it. And the second goal is to get it as fast as possible. So if you think about it, Jake, can you grab that thing out off the top of the tool cabinet? The demo piece? Of the sharpened edge. So while he's doing that, are we doing a draw tonight, or are we saving that for Friday?
Well, we'll save it. We save them for Thursday.
Did we raise any money tonight?
I don't have access to that.
Ask Ken if we raised any funds tonight. So, did Luther do this?
I don't know.
It's not his writing, I don't think. Maybe it is. So there's your plane blade. There's your side profile of your plane blade. And the only part, so your plane blade sits in the plane like that. The only part that actually does the cutting is the back. This is all relief, but you have to do two in order to get one sharp edge, because a cutting edge is where two surfaces meet. So if you plain, it's colored black, this is the primary bevel. If you polish that, you gain nothing. You just spend a lot of time. Secondary bevel's right there. If you polish that, you gain nothing. Waste of time. So once you elevate like this, we use the secondary bevel to straighten the edge, and then you simply come in a little bit higher and you polish that little wee bit, represented by black, so that you get the sharpest edge you can get with the minimal, or the most minimal amount of surface area needing to be worked. And then on the back of the blade, instead of polishing all of this, we put a little Charlesworth ruler trick. So we set our blade on the stone, but we put a little steel rule on one side that elevates the blade like that. And now the only part that touches is right out here. And then you just have that little bit polished and that little bit polished. And you end up with as good an edge as you'll get in very little time. So I did a video called 32 Seconds to Sharp. And you go check that out, and that will give you the whole spiel. Anybody else come on at the last minute? Excited. Class shows up. Students start arriving on Saturday in Maine. We pick them up Sunday morning. We here for we actually might do it at the Brundage Point on our Sunday night. We have a lovely meal. Anita, and congratulations to Anita. She's a grandmother. Her daughter Paige had a little baby girl. Mm-hmm. This morning? Yesterday morning. It was this morning. It was this morning. So big shout out, Paige. Congratulations, Anita, Brad. Anita's our cook. Does a wonderful job. Anything else? Did we find out if we raised any money tonight? Nothing?
Didn't find out, no.
No, you didn't find out. Okay, we wrapping it up, Rick?
Yep.
Okay, we will see you Friday night. We'll do this again, and we'll do the second half of it on Thursday night when we're here with the students. You get a chance to meet them and see what they're doing. Wood is good. See you in less than a week, and please support us. It's a great work. Great work for great people. And Charlie Kirk, much respect.